This is Tax and Business Basics for Small Businesses. What we're going to cover today, we're going to cover registering your business, what permits you need and how to get them, what to do when you start selling product, identifying the differences between employees and independent contractors. We're going to talk about tax withholding. We're going to talk about income tax and the forms for employers. And we're going to talk about electronic access. So there's usually a path that we want people to go through that we recommend for starting your business. One of the first things that we recommend is going to the Secretary of State at business.Idaho.gov/register-a-business and registering your business name. It does cost a little bit to do this. The cost varies between what you're trying to do, but none of it is very expensive. We also recommend getting an EIN from the IRS. There's a lot of three-letter acronyms there. Now, the EINs aren't required unless you have employees, but if you don't have one, you're going to need to use your Social Security number for business purposes, and I know a lot of people are uneasy about that. EINs are free. They're easy to get, so we recommend them even if you don't really need one. And then some banks will require an EIN to open a business account. The next step is going to be applying for permits. You'll do that at tax.Idaho.gov/IBR. Once you have your permits, then you're going to want to create an account in TAP at idahotap.gentax.com/tap. And then while you're doing this, go ahead and set up your website, because 3 and 4 are going to take some time. Go ahead and set up a website, open up your business bank account, and away you go. So we're going to go through some of these steps in detail. So, getting your Idaho accounts. To get your Idaho accounts, you're going to go to tax.Idaho.gov. This is kind of the main website for us. You'll see where it says Online Services, and just put your mouse cursor over the top of Online Services, and there'll be that drop-down menu, and click on Apply for Business Permit. Once you've clicked on Apply for Business Permit, you're going to go to a window that has a lot of information, but you're going to look towards the bottom. And towards the bottom, you're going to see Idaho Business Registration, or IBR, application. If you click on that link right there, that's where you want to go. Now, you'll be able to fill this out online, or you can print out and fill it out as a PDF. If you do the paper form, it is going to take longer because they have to translate it back into an electronic format. Okay. If you click on the link, you're going to be taken to this window. It's the Idaho Business Registration, and this is the welcome screen. So the IBR form is going to go to the Idaho Department of Labor. It's going to go to the Idaho Industrial Commission, and then it's going to go to the Idaho State Tax Commission. The Tax Commission gets it last, so you may get your permits from other agencies first. And it can take several weeks to get all of your permits. So read through this information. It just gives you a heads up as to what's happening with this process. When you're ready to register for your new business, just click that blue button in the bottom. That's going to take you to this window, which is going to tell you the information that you may need to proceed. Now, you are probably not going to need all of this. So things like a board of director member information. If that's not part of your business, obviously you won't need that. When you're ready to go, just say, I have the required information, I'm ready to proceed. And then you're here. So at this point, we're going to begin a new registration. So we're going to click where it says create a new account. If you've already completed an IBR application and then you need to add some information, you're still going to need to create a new account. Once you've done a registration, it's kind of read-only at that point. You can't add more information to it. You can see what you've done, but you can't add to it. So it's not a big deal. If you need to add some information to your registration, say you initially set it up as self-employed, but now you think you're probably going to need to add some employees, so you're going to want to check, go ahead and just create a new registration, go through the questions. it's not going to duplicate your account. That's it for getting your permits through Idaho. It's going to be a series of questions, quite a few, and depending on how you answer those questions, it's going to recommend, okay, you need this permit, you need this permit, you need this. It's really quite handy. It's a lot of questions because we're trying to determine what it is that you need because we want to make sure you're set up for success. But just go through it, take some time, grab some coffee, and then once you're done, you'll get the confirmation, and then you just wait for their permits. Right now things are a little backlogged, so it may take a couple weeks or longer. So what we're doing is we're selling items. Here we call it tangible personal property. Idaho has a 6% sales tax on all tangible personal property. So this tax is not part of your income. It belongs to the state, and you are just collecting it for us. Now, tangible personal property is anything that you can touch, you can pick up, carry, eat, or otherwise handle, generally not including real property. And services usually are not taxable in Idaho. So, the reason I brought that up, because now we need to determine who needs a seller's permit. So a seller's permit, any sale of tangible personal property that you make in the state of Idaho requires you to collect sales tax unless there's an exemption. And for that, you need a seller's permit. Now, there are a lot of exceptions. We're going to discuss some of the more common ones here in just a second. Well, let's go ahead and do it. Let's take a look at whether or not a sale made into another state has an exemption. That's a pretty common one here. So let's talk about it. Shipped goods to another state. You're going to charge Idaho sales tax if the buyer arranges shipping or they pick up the goods. You are not going to charge Idaho sales tax on goods that were delivered to another state by your company vehicle or by a common carrier. Now, the key difference here is whether the customer takes possession of the product. Let me get through this last little part, Julian, and I'll answer that question, okay? The key difference is whether the customer where they take possession of the product. If you deliver it or arrange shipping to another state, you or your agent still have possession of it until it reaches the final destination. The transfer of that property takes place in the other state, so you do not have to collect Idaho tax. Now, you may have to collect tax for that other state, but you don't have to collect Idaho. Now, if the buyer comes to Idaho to pick up the goods, or they arrange for the shipping, they took possession of those goods in Idaho, so that transaction is taxable. Okay, so Idaho doesn't exempt buyers from non-taxing states. If they buy products in Idaho, they're subject to sales tax. Okay, so Jillian has a question. My business takes deposits. Do I only charge taxes once I get full payment? I have two experts here. I have Gordon and Mark. I'm going to unmute both of you, by the way.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. It depends a little bit on what it is that you have going on. For example, if you're doing something where you're doing reservations and you're actually taking the payment for that reservation up front, then you collect the tax for it. If you're just taking a deposit for an order for tangible personal property, then the tax comes due when the product is delivered, or when the sale is actually consummated. Even if you don't get to deliver the product for a couple of weeks, when they pay for the product, that's when the tax becomes due.
So she just said it's
custom products. I see that. Yeah. So yeah, yours. Well, custom products, that may be a little bit different. I'm going to have to do just a little bit of research on that one, because I think you're creating a specific product for that person. Let me look here for just a couple of minutes, and I'll see if I can get back to you. We'll let Steve go ahead and move on what he's doing.
Gordon, do you want to take a couple seconds and introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah. My name is Gordon Myers. I am the supervisor of the Taxpayer Services Department at the Tax Commission, and we're the department that gets all these questions in the first place. When you contact the Tax Commission by phone, by coming into the office, by email, unless you have somebody specific you're trying to reach, you're usually going to reach my department.
Thanks. I'm just going to leave you off mute, so you can mute yourself when you're ready. Okay. Okay, so if you're shipping a lot of goods to a specific state, you're going to want to research what that state's threshold is for sales tax. So Wayfair versus South Dakota decision several years ago allowed states to collect sales tax for items shipped to their states, but each state has different requirements because we can't standardize things. So a certain state may say you collect sales tax on the first $1 of any sales into our state. Another state may say you collect sales tax after the first $500 of sales. It varies. So you're going to want to do some research to find out what that is. The nice thing is if you're selling through like a marketplace to sell your goods, check, because they are probably collecting sales tax for you. Most of them do. Oh, Jillian had another follow-up. We took the deposit in a village that has tax, but we will finish the sale in another town.
And actually, the State Tax Commission doesn't get involved in any of those local option taxes. So you probably have to check with both of those localities. When you do that, they will probably both tell you that you need to collect the tax for them. In reality, it's probably only going to be the one where the sale actually takes place.
That is one thing I have learned here at the Tax Commission. Sometimes the answer is, it depends. The answer is a lot.
The answer always starts with, it depends.
It depends. Okay, so let's talk about invoices or receipts. Sales tax has to be on a separate line item on an invoice or a receipt. Putting in includes tax is not acceptable. And as a retailer, you can't advertise that you will pay the tax for the customer or advertise that there's no sales tax. So we should see that tax on actual receipts, okay, or invoice. So here's a sample invoice. Could be a receipt. We're just going to break it down. This is for awesome auto repair and a very discounted brake job. I just had it done on my truck, and it was like 3 times this price. So we had 2 brake pads at $50 a piece for a total of $100, and you'll see that that was taxable. We had 2 brake shoes at $100 a piece, so that's $200, and that was taxable. And then they only charged $100 for labor. Now you'll notice that the labor is not taxable. So because the brake pads and the brake shoes are tangible personal property, they are taxable. The labor is not in Idaho, so it's not. So we have $400 in sales, but only $300 of that was taxable. 300 times 6% is 18. So your total due is $418. That's why we would like to have everything broken out. It helps you because it helps you document this is what I collected for sales taxes, and then it helps us if we have to check on it. So it's a win-win for everyone. The ST-101. If you're buying for resale, you're wholesaling or you're producing items for sale, or if you have a statutory exemption, you can buy your products exempt from sales tax, usually or sometimes, using form ST-101. You may also receive these forms from your customers, so they're not required to collect, so you're not required to collect tax from them. Okay. So we're going to go through the ST-101 a little bit here. There's a total of 4 pages of instructions that go along with the ST-101, and they explain a lot of the exemptions for, so like buying for resale or producer exemptions, contractor exemptions, that sort of thing. I would recommend going out to our forums, finding the ST-101, downloading one, and then just being familiar with it. Because as a retailer, it's possible that you're going to have somebody present one of these things to you, and then you may be able to use this to help your business. So it'd be good to be familiar with it. So after all the instructions, this is the kind of the actual form or certificate. So, hang on, I skipped a page. There we go. So for most buyers, you're going to fall into one of the first two categories on this page. So you're going to only fill out one section. So even if you have a seller's permit and you're a producer, you don't need to fill out those sections. Just pick one. If you're buying items for resale, you're going to select that first section. If you sell retail in Idaho, you'll need to include your seller's permit number. And where do you get your seller's permit? I know, nobody told you to be quizzes today. Anybody remember where you get the permit? Everybody's shy. You're going to get the permit at the Idaho Business Registration, or the IBR, off of tax.Idaho.gov. There you go. Nice job, Amanda. So sellers qualifying for other exemptions don't need the permit number. So what you'll do is you'll list the primary nature of your business, describe the products that you sell, you rent, or you lease, and then include your seller's permit number if you're required to. And then you would present that to the seller. Now, if you're a producer, you don't need your seller's permit number to get that exemption. You'll still need it if you want to make a sale. But this will allow you to purchase your supplies without paying taxes on them. But it doesn't apply to everything that you buy, only to your supplies directly related to your business. And if you have any questions about that, I would reach out to Gordon's team, because that can get pretty complicated. We've discussed some things in meetings, and it goes pretty deep sometimes. The buyer is responsible for verifying the validity of the ST-101. So by verifying the sales permit number is correct and valid. And we can do this in TAP, and I will show you how to do that here in a little bit. And Gordon answered. It's out there in the chat. You should collect the sales tax on the deposit, and also make it easier to collect the corrected amount when an item is finally fully paid for.
Except I can't spell correct.
That's all right. I do that all the time. Fat fingers and a tiny keyboard. Okay, so that's the ST-101. Again, I would download that, read it over, become familiar with it. If you have any questions on how that works, go ahead and contact us. So reporting. Reporting is important because it makes sure that you're staying within the law that you should, make sure that everything's covered, and you don't have any big surprises. Sales tax is due in the reporting period that sale takes place. So you can't defer sales tax, and you're required to file a return even if you had no sales. Maybe a $0 return, but you need to file something. So an example, if you buy a cell phone, the company will usually let you take it with no money down, and you're just going to make payments along with your bill. You're going to be required to pay the sales tax before you leave with the phone. And that is because you're taking possession of the product, right? So that's why when you go to get a new phone, you have to put out some cash first because you're paying that sales tax. Cynthia has a question. I had a sale to another state online, so I will not show a sale for Idaho on my quarterly, correct?
You will show the sale because the very first line on the form is asking for your total sales. The second line on the form is how you're going to report anything that was not subject to Idaho tax, and you can deduct it out there. But we do want to have a total amount of sales on the first line. He'll show you a little bit of the Form 850.
That was a perfect segue. So, the Form 850. So this is your Idaho sales and use tax return. We're going to walk through what this thing means. We're going to give you some close-up of the lines that you need to complete this Form 850. So 850, I don't know in this one if I break that out. I don't think I do. right on the actual form itself, it's going to give you your permit number. It's going to tell you what period it's for. In this case, it's from September 1st to September 30th of 2013. So this one's a little old. And when it's due, October 21st. Okay. You're going to have your total sales, like Gordon just talked about, less any non-taxable sales. Net taxable sales will be given then, and then we're just going to work our way down this list. So let's put some numbers in here to show you how it works. Total sales, $1,025 in total sales. Okay. Then you had $50 in non-taxable sales. So somebody gave you an ST-101 for $50 in sales. Gordon, is this where you would put the sale out of state that doesn't collect tax?
Yes, it is considered a non-taxable sale. And if it's something that you ship to another state, you don't have to have that ST-101 in order to claim it here. If it's somebody who's picking something up in the state, buying it for resale or for production purposes, that's when you're going to want to have that ST-101.
Perfect. This is going to leave you with your net taxable sales. So 1025 minus 50 is 975. And then we have items subject to use tax, which could be a whole other seminar on its own. Items, so let's say you bought a magazine subscription for $25 and tax wasn't collected on that, and you should have paid tax on it. So you need to put that amount in here as subject to use tax so that it gets added so we know that there should be sales tax paid on that. Okay. A great simplification of sales and use tax.
If I can add a little bit on use tax, what use tax is an item that should have been taxed, and for whatever reason the seller didn't collect tax. It could have been something you bought online, which is kind of the most frequent one, but it could be something that an ST-101 was used incorrectly for, or something like that. The big difference between use tax and sales tax, it's all the same amount, but use tax is something that you are paying directly to the state instead of to the person that you're buying it from.
Thanks. So we had our net taxable sales of $975 plus the items that were subject to use tax, gives us our total taxable of $1,000. And then we're going to multiply that taxable amount by 6% or 0.06, which gives us $60 in taxes. So any adjustments, you would list them there. So adjustments occur, let's say you sold a product and you collected sales tax on it. After you have filed the taxes, the customer then returned the item. So you refunded them their money and you refunded them the sales tax as well, right? So now you have paid that tax to us and you've also refunded it back to the customer. So we allow you to claim that back on this line so you don't have to end up paying that. Now you're going to need to give us some documentation of that transaction, or that application will be, or that adjustment will be denied. This is why keeping track of your receipts and things are important. But if that happens, that's where you'll put it. In our example here, we don't have any adjustments just yet. So it leaves us with our total taxable due of $60. And then we have penalties and interest. So if you file late, penalties and interest may apply. We suggest you file the return without including P&I and just let us calculate it for you. Our calculations tend to be more accurate than if you're using Sage or QuickBooks or something like that.
More accurate meaning we usually don't charge quite as much, so it's to your benefit to do it that way. And the same is true of the penalty and interest calculator we have on our website. It tends to overestimate because it rounds the wrong direction in reality. We don't do rounding when we do the calculation, so it's an accurate number.
Yep. So once you have all that, you're going to have your final balance, in this case $60, and then you would just send it in along with the form to file the taxes. And just remember, you're collecting taxes from your customers. This money belongs to the state, and we aren't taking it from your profits. So please don't hate us. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's talk about becoming an employer. This is great. It means you're hiring. Your business is growing. We love that. There are also some other things that happen in here that you need to be aware of. You need to be tempted to, you may be tempted to classify your employees as independent contractors. Just be aware that the IRS has guidelines for who is an employee and who is a contractor. In most cases, you're going to have employees, which means that you'll need to withhold taxes for them. And this is significant because you're required to withhold payroll taxes for employers, but not for contractors. Okay. But just classifying everybody as an independent contractor is not a solution for that. There are actual parameters that determine which is which, and they're listed up there. So if you have hours that are set by the employer, you're an employee. If you set your own hours, you're an independent contractor. And it just goes down from there. Just be aware of this. And like we said, most of the time you're going to have employees. So income tax withholding shouldn't be confused with your business's income tax. Withholding isn't your money. We keep saying that. It's money that the employee has earned, and then you're sending it part of it to the state and to the IRS on behalf of the employee, so they don't have a huge tax bill at the end of the year. So, when do you need a withholding account? If you have one or more full-time or part-time employees working in Idaho, you need to have a withholding account. And you need to get your withholding account established before you hire your employees. And then remember that it can actually take several weeks to get that permit. And where do we get the withholding account permit? Amanda knows. Yep. You'll get that at the Idaho Business Registration, so off of tax.Idaho.gov. So, income that you need to withhold on. Wages. So, all wage income is subject to Idaho income tax if the employee earns the income while working in Idaho. This is going to include employees who aren't Idaho residents, employees who were family members, people working only one day in Idaho, so performers, so when Elton John came in, things like that, and people who aren't citizens of the United States unless they're exempt from federal withholding. You'll also need to withhold on wages that were paid in kind. So, wages that you pay employees is something other than money. So things like goods, lodging, food, clothing, services, or personal use of a company vehicle. Generally speaking, you have to withhold Idaho income tax on the fair market value of such payments. You don't have to withhold Idaho income tax for food or lodging provided for the employer's convenience if the food or lodging qualifies for an exclusion from wages under the federal law. Questions on that? So if you have supplemental wages, you'll need to withhold on those as well. And those will be things like bonuses, severance pay, awards or prizes, overtime pay, a payment for accumulated sick leave, that sort of thing. So things that you don't have to withhold on. So you'll have to have a withholding account and you'll have to report your payroll, but you don't have to withhold Idaho income tax if the employee isn't a resident of Idaho and they've earned less than $1,000 in Idaho in a calendar year. Or you employ an agricultural laborer who earns less than $1,000 in a calendar year. Or if the employee is exempt from federal withholding. Additionally, you don't have to withhold if the employee is an enrolled member of a federally recognized American Indian tribe. They earn income on a reservation, and they live on a reservation. Okay. Or the employee gives you a Form ID W-4 stating that he or she is exempt from withholding because they don't owe or they didn't owe income taxes in the previous year, and they expect not to owe for the current year. To fix that. So note, this exemption is only good for the current year. The employee must give you a new form each year. Okay. So you need to report your new hires within 20 days of hiring, and you will do that with the Idaho Department of Labor, and that is at labor.Idaho.gov. And while you're doing that, you need to fill out I-9s and employee eligibility verification. So you have to have each employee fill one out. That information can be found on USCIS.gov, which sounds like a crime drama on CBS. And this I-9 form is required to show that an employee is legally allowed to work in the United States. And then federal and state W-4 forms. It used to be that we had one W-4 for everything. That has since changed, so there is a W-4 for federal, there's a W-4 for state. And tax withholding is going to be based on what they put in those W-4s. They need to complete these forms for both the IRS and for the state of Idaho. So when you're having employees fill these out, make sure they follow the instructions. From practical experience, because I was a kid and I thought I knew everything a while ago, filling out these forms incorrectly is going to result in either too little being withheld, yeah, it was too little, and then the employee is going to owe a gigantic amount of tax at the end of the day, or at the end of the year when they try to file.
It's almost always too little being withheld.
Yeah, it was not fun. So yeah, make sure they're filling this out correctly. They may think, hey, I can put all these exemptions, all these numbers in here, and I can get it so you don't withhold anything, and then I have more money. They're still going to owe the tax, but now instead of having some of it taken out by you, they're going to have to come up with all of it at the end of the year. So where do we get these W-4s? For the federal one, just go to irs.gov. Is there a certain percentage being taken?
There is actually withholding charts that you'll have to use because it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how much they expect to make during the year, how frequently you pay them. The idea is that we're trying to figure out an estimate of how much tax they're going to owe based on the pay that they're receiving. When Steve mentioned that if you put the wrong information down, what frequently we're seeing happen is that a person is putting down that they are married and they're going to be filing jointly. Their spouse is doing the same thing. When you file your income tax return as married filing jointly, you get about a $25,000 standard deduction. So when you say that on a W-4, it's taking that into account off of your total income. When both spouses do the same thing, that's $50,000 that's being shown as non-taxable income. And that just means that there's not going to be enough tax withheld. You're going to end up owing tax on another $25,000 that you didn't expect. The idea is to read the instructions. And then you, from the employer standpoint, you're going to use the charts that say, okay, this is a biweekly pay period. This is the amount of money that they're making for the number of exemptions that they're claiming, et cetera. And it will give you a percentage to use for that. There's not one set percentage. However, I will say that it's always going to be less than 6% because that's the maximum Idaho income tax rate right now.
So, Gordon, would you recommend like a payroll software program or an accounting software program?
Accounting software programs work as long as they're kept up to date. The withholding guide is actually available on our website as well. We used to have it as a booklet, and I always recommended don't use the booklet. Go to the website, get the page that applies to whatever your payroll period is, because it's got all these things in there saying, okay, you get paid once a week, twice a month, every other week, in some cases annually or biannually. that's garbage when you're trying to figure out what the amount is, because if you happen to pick the wrong page because it's there, you're going to have a very skewed amount to use. So pick out what your reporting period is, and then just print out those pages, or just use it right off of the website using that information. There's actually two different ways to figure it. One is to use the tables that they have, and the other is to calculate it with a percentage method. But again, the percentage changes.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks. So yeah, W-4s. If you go to IRS.gov and go to Forms and Instructions, it's usually right at the top. It's the W-4 for them. For the state, we'd go to tax.Idaho.gov again. And then when I took this screenshot, it was down in the latest news. It has probably changed at this point. So you could go to Forms right at the top, right next to Refund Status. Click on Forms. Or if you go all the way to the top where it says Help and Search, you can search your W-4. There are several different ways to find them. Usually I just search for stuff where I look on Forms, but I'm used to it. This is what our W-4 looks like. So this is the part that the employee should give you for your records. This form isn't sent to the state or to the IRS. You're going to use it when you're preparing your payroll to know how much to withhold and to keep it for your records. The instructions start at the top of this page, and then they go all into the back, and just make sure the employee starts at the beginning. Okay.
Notice there is a box C that says married withhold at a single rate. That's kind of what I was talking about, and the instructions on the front of this page say that if you're married filing jointly, that both of you work, to select box C. And a lot of people just don't need to see that part of the instructions.
Yeah. So one we always use. Okay, so reporting forms. So we've talked about the 850 already. There's another one called the 910, which is a payment voucher. Depending on your volume, you may be required to file more or less frequently than monthly or quarterly. The due date will show on the actual filing form when you need to file. And then you are required to file even if there's $0 to report. So monthly filers, if you're a monthly filer, it's going to be due the 20th of the following month. Quarterly filers, it's due on the last day of the following month. And then file a 910 showing $0 by your due date if you've had no withholding taken out. So are you going to remember this? No, you don't need to. It's actually on the forms. You do need to make sure you don't lose the forms, though. Because this form's not available online. If you need a replacement, you need to call us. Please don't use a form for a different period or for another company. And I'll walk through why. So let's just walk through what some of this form is. We have your permit number here. So this tells us who it's coming from. So if you use it for a different company or from an older company that's no longer with us, it may have a different permit number. So that's not going to work. What period it's for. When it's due. So the form will always tell you when it's due. We have the actual payment amount, and that's the amount that you're going to put in there. Just, you know, a note on this, let me back up a little bit. This is the due date. We do honor postmarks. So as long as the postmark is on or before the due date, you're fine. And we have the actual payment amount. And this is where you're going to put in the amount that's entered. It is a single payment, so it's not a payment for each employee. We don't track what each employee has withheld using this form. So this is a lump sum here. So where does this number come from? It's the total amount withheld for state income tax from all employees during that period. Your payroll software should be able to generate this number for you, or if you have really good bookkeeping, you'll be able to pull it up that way. This part down here, this looks like a check. That's kind of what it is. These numbers are important. They give us all of the information we need to properly post your payment. So if this is missing, it's going to take longer to post this because they don't know where it's supposed to go. So they're going to have to start doing research. So that's why if you have one, or you've just, I had an old one, I marked out a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to use that, it's not going to work. Go ahead and call us so we can get you the right form. So that's the 910. There's also the 967. The 967 is due January 31st, and it serves a couple of purposes. It reconciles Idaho income tax withholding on the W-2 forms with the 910s, and it serves as a cover sheet for the state copies of the W-2s. So 967, this is a sample of the 967. So this, again, reconciles your W-2s with the withholding that you have sent us. Speaking of W-2s, so the W-2 is a document that you're going to give the employees so that they can complete their tax returns. So the Form 967 and W-2s can also be filed electronically by uploading something called an EFW-2 file. And these are generated by your computer software, if you have it available. If you have more than 50 employees, you are required to file electronically with us and with the IRS. Okay? And then just the highlighted portions are just what the state is looking for. Okay. So a summary for all this, because this was a lot of information. You need to be aware of the differences between an employee and an independent contractor. You need to make sure you're reporting employment to the Idaho Department of Labor. Make sure you have your employees fill out I-9s and W-4s. Make sure you have a withholding account. I would get that before you get employees. Be aware what a 910 is. It works with your withholding account to send in state income taxes that you've withheld. And then what the 967 is, which is the annual form with the W-2s to report yearly to the state. So employees is going to give you a little more paperwork, but you have employees, so now you don't have to do everything by yourself, so you have time. Any questions on that? Well, let's talk about e-filing. So you can file Forms 850, 910, and 967 electronically, free of charge. And then again, employees with 50 or more, employers with 50 or more employees working in Idaho have to submit W-2s and 967s electronically. You can't file individual and business income taxes using TAP. We can do a lot of stuff in TAP. You can't do that. Okay. So let's go over TAP. Like I created this just as the perfect segue. TAP is available on the tax.Idaho.gov. It is the Taxpayer Access Portal. We recommend that you set up a TAP account as soon as you get your permits. You have to have your permits before you can set up TAP. And because we have security procedures that take some time, expect a couple of weeks or so before you can actually complete the TAP setup. So what can you do in TAP? You can e-file sales and use taxes returns, travel and convention tax returns, auditorium district taxes, withholding taxes, IFTA reports, and beer and wine taxes. You can also make payments for sales and use taxes, travel and convention taxes, and auditorium taxes. Withholding, you can make payments for individual income tax, for business income tax, and for beer and wine tax. You can also validate permits, so seller's permits, cigarette permits, and tobacco permits. What you can't do in TAP, you can't apply for a permit, you can't amend a return, and you can't file income taxes. Okay? But the rest of that stuff you can do through TAP. So I really recommend using that. It's a great resource. and it makes life a lot easier. It's going to take some time to get your account, so get started on it as soon as possible. Okay. Remember, get your permits, which you'll have to do through IBR. Once you have that, or those, go ahead and create your TAP account. Any questions there? Okay. Let's talk about income taxes. So far, we have discussed topics that relate mostly to the Idaho State Tax Commission. And so questions about those topics can be directed towards the Tax Commission. And we have the contact information on the last slide here for them. There are going to be some few items of great importance to business owners, but they are concerning the IRS. So I'm going to go over some of that with the following information. Self-employment taxes. Self-employment taxes include FICA, Social Security, and Medicare. You must pay this on your own if you're self-employed. Even if you're starting a business as a side business, that amount has to be paid. When you are employed by someone else, then usually these taxes are split between the employer and the employee. But as a self-employed person, you would need to pay that full price, or full percentage. It's recommended that you set aside at least 15.3% of your net profit to make sure that you have enough money to cover this tax. And this is often paid quarterly along with your estimated federal taxes. And then this is through the IRS, not through Idaho. So if you do have questions about it, I would see irs.gov. So yeah, when you're self-employed, you pay both the employee and the employer portions. Payroll tax is due on the first dollar of profit for a sole proprietor, and there's no standard deduction applied. We recommend 15.3%, and the payroll tax isn't the same as income tax. But you do report and pay payroll tax along with your federal taxes. So deductible business expenses. The IRS states that all deductible business expenses have to be incurred with connection to your trade, your business, or your profession. They have to be ordinary and they have to be necessary, and they must not be lavish or extravagant under the circumstances. So they have many expenses for running your business can be deductible. I believe I have a slide for this. Yeah, I'm getting there. So what you'll use for sole proprietors is Form 1040 Schedule C to report your deductions. Okay. There are different forms for reporting your business expenses as tax deductions, and it's important to do research to verify which form matches your business. Sole proprietors will report their taxes on their personal return, while other business types will file separate returns. Okay. And there can be a lot of different ones, so if you have questions, I would talk to the irs.gov about that. Okay. So this Form 1040 Schedule C, this is appropriate if your business shows. If it's appropriate for your business, this is part 2 of that form, and it's going to show you the different types of business expenses that you can report on this form. Other forms have a similar layout, but they have different line items. So for this one, you can put in your car and truck expenses, commissions and fees, taxes and licenses, that sort of thing. That may be different with a different form. Record keeping. The tax agencies, Idaho and the IRS, can normally audit back 3 years from the current year. However, if you've been doing business without permits, they can go back as far as 7 years. Okay. So we recommend keeping records for at least 4 years that are receipts, check registers, invoices for sales or purchases, and tax returns. Some we recommend keeping longer than 4 years. Things like payroll records, contracts, I would keep them until 4 years after the close of that contract. Exemption certificates, I would keep those until they're revoked. Exemption certificates don't expire, so you would keep them until they're revoked. IRS recommends keeping some records indefinitely, so you might want to check with them about that to find out which ones they think you should keep indefinitely. Any questions on that? So if we're talking about payroll records, so for payroll records include the name, the address, Social Security number, the dates of employment, the wages and the taxes that have been withheld, hours and work location, the W-4s, W-2s, 1099s, I-9s, etc., and keep that information for at least 4 years. So there is a little bit of record keeping that you need to do. And mostly it's just so if you do happen to get audited, you have that information available. So as long as you have it, then it's not a problem. The problems come in when somebody wants to go in and check things and you don't have any of it. Any questions on any of that stuff? So we have a lot of ways of getting information. We're on Facebook. We have Twitter, Instagram. I will confess I have not been on our Instagram. LinkedIn, YouTube. We have a lot of videos on YouTube, and I'm putting new ones out there all the time. We also have a newsletter, tax.Idaho.gov/getnews. And phone numbers, we've got them. So in the Boise area, our phone number is 208-334-7660. Or we have a toll-free number of 800-972-7660. Our webpage is tax.Idaho.gov, and honestly, that if you can search through it, that is a fantastic repository of information. You can email us at taxrep@tax.Idaho.gov, and we have a fax machine, 208-334-7846. Any other questions or anything? So, Jillian wants to know how you get the slides. So on the email that I sent you, either yesterday afternoon at about 3 o'clock or this morning with the link to get in here, when you click on that email and you get to the page to get in, scroll to the bottom, and you should see the material there. If you don't see it, email me at taxtraining@tax.Idaho.gov. It's the very first message in the chat. Email me and I can send it out to you via PDF. Okay? Sure. So let's take 4 minutes. So it's 9:56. Let's take until 10 o'clock. So grab some coffee, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. When we come back, I'm going to have Irene Gonzalez from the Small Business Administration. It's going to give you some fantastic information. And then after that, it's going to be Taxpayer Advocate Service with Don Boltononis, because it looks like the folks from the Industrial Commission will not be able to attend today. We'll still have their information. We'll still have their material, but they just won't be here. So 4 minutes. I'll see you back here at 10 o'clock, okay? All right, it's 10 o'clock. Irene has the magic presenter ball.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing good. How about yourself?
Good. It's been a long time.
It has been. Holy cow. Okay, we are ready. Oh, so just to clarify, are the other two presenters not on today?
Industrial Commission isn't going to be here.
Okay.
But I think Dawn is here. Yeah, Dawn's already here. So.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, so looks like I am on next, and I am ready to go.
Excellent. Away you go.
Perfect. Alrighty, so thanks for joining today. You heard from the Tax Commission, awesome folks, and what I'm going to cover today is building your business model. So I'm going to be talking through business plan, and so hopefully you do have one in place. And as part of your business plan, having a section for all of your regulatory agencies that you would need to comply with. such as the Tax Commission, Department of Labor, the Industrial Commission, and then what is due, when is it due, what is the compliance that is needed. And so I'm going to be sharing SBA resources and also giving you some tips, and hopefully you can gauge a few nuggets that will be helpful for your business. All right, so starting off with, why should you have a business plan? So as if you are building a house, you would want blueprints. Same thing with a business. You need to have a plan. This is going to be your roadmap. You determine the size to meet your needs at any given time. So how big do you want your business? How small? How much do you want it to grow? So you set goals. You're going to monitor your progress and adjust your course. And it's always best to have a vision and see where you're going. Now, do keep in mind that a business plan is not set in stone, and it does adjust over time, and it can adjust at any time. So always be prepared. You could have an opportunity, you could have a challenge, but you want to be able to say, okay, that happened. Should I go that path, or should I look at this new path, or should I stay on the same course? And so having a business plan in place definitely gives you a vision and gives you something to work towards. And I would also encourage you to, I'll be sharing some different aspects, but I'd like you to also work on a 12-month plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan. All right, so as we know, business is a journey. You're going to try different paths. You're going to try different services, inventories, maybe adjust your customer base. Maybe you're going to look at different opportunities. And so it's looking at, you know, which mountain do I climb? Which route do I take? What are my resources? Do I change my schedules? What are my metrics? So it's a constant adjustment, but also measuring where you're at, what's working, what's not, and then being able to keep accountable and keep tabs on what to intermix and what to keep the same, what to change. All right, so we have, whether you have or you haven't heard this, but we do know that failing to plan is planning to fail. And so it is very important to have a plan in place to see where your business is going. All right, so just a few points. I'd like to encourage folks to put a couple different plans in place. Now, these are all going to roll up to your business plan. And a lot of times folks say, oh my gosh, I've got this 40-page document and I don't know if I'm going to use it. It's going to be thrown in a drawer. And maybe you can even say that's what you've done so far. But if you break down this plan into smaller pieces and put them into categories of a financial plan, where am I going to be getting capital? What am I going to use it for? How long is it going to last? And where will I get more? Have a marketing plan. Who is my customer? Have I created a customer profile? What different social media platforms am I going to use? What kind of content am I going to say? Am I going to be having videos? What kind of images, pictures would I be using? And so have a marketing plan, and then have a operational plan. And this is your day-to-day. What will I be doing? What will my employees be doing? And then I always encourage folks to put together a cybersecurity plan as well, because a lot of businesses think, well, it's just me who wants my stuff. Trust me, everybody wants your stuff, right? It could be your list of your clients. It could be your banking information. It could be your vendors. And so put together a cybersecurity plan as well. And so you see here that I've also included part of your value proposition, which basically means, why should a business choose you? So what's the value that you're providing to your customers? So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to put together a elevator pitch. And if you're not familiar with that term, basically, if you're in an elevator, it's about 30 seconds between each floor, and you have a person in there with you. Conversation comes up, what would you tell them about your business? Or if you see someone on the street, for a quick 30 seconds, how would you describe your business? What would you tell them about it? So that could be some homework, is put together your elevator pitch. And then numbers, so what are your expenses? What kind of revenue are you bringing in? Are you keeping track of your margin and profits? And then that action plan is, what are you doing? Who are you selling to? When? So this all comes together for your business plan. So I will break this down so you can see some of these different details. So part of the business plan is also putting together and describing who are you. So what is this business? And a lot of this content is also going to be put on your website. There's these different tabs, right? So one of the tabs says our story or about us. And that's where you're going to be describing who are you. And then what do you sell? What are your products and services? And really have a good definition as to what you are selling. If you're a landscaper, are you doing mowing, pruning, and maybe you don't do landscape design and you don't do sprinklers. So be very specific what you do and where. Is there a geographical location? Is this just online? Do you have a brick and mortar? And then why? Why is it unique? So as a consumer, why should I do business with you? What is it you have that I need? And so describe what that value proposition is by telling, both on your website, social media marketing, how are you different? And what is your value? What's your differentiator from your competition? And we all know that businesses exist to solve a problem. So what is the problem that you're solving for your customers? Really understand what their needs are and how are you meeting them. Are you fulfilling a need or a desire for your customers? So if we stick with landscaping, I'll have a landscaper come over to help me with the trimming and maybe giving suggestions on fertilizing, because maybe I don't have those tools, or I'm not really sure how to shape, but I want my yard to look nice. So that's a need for me. So those are things that you would share as part of your marketing. Would you like to spend more time with your family? And this is an area where I can fulfill that for you. So there's lots of ways you can put words into your marketing that can reach your customers. All right, part of your plan is also indicating what your short-term and your long-term goals are. So short-term is within the next 12 months. So what are you going to be doing for your business over the next 12 months? And a lot of times people say, I don't know, that's a long time. I haven't even thought about that. So if that's something that you find that's a little challenging to look over the next 12 months, then break it down. Break it down into pieces by looking at quarters, and then you take those quarters and put them into months, and take that month and break it down into weeks and weeks into days. That way you can look at each month and say, well, how many yard jobs do I need to do to cover my monthly expenses? So if you say, well, I need to cover at least $3,000 worth of monthly expenses, how many yard services will that need to be? And you have to take into account what are all my expenses. So part of that's going to be looking at your financials and going into some of those details. And then your long-term goals, that's looking over the next 3 and 5 years. What would you like to do? So if you looked at your business and you thought, okay, if it was kind of no holds bar and I want to do anything with my business, what would it look like? And that could be a long-term goal, but what is realistic today? Maybe I'd like to have 3 people working for me. I'd like to have two trucks for this lawn care business. But for today, it's just me. But by putting your long-term goals in, you can have something to reach towards. And then what kind of resources or financial resources will you need to achieve and be successful with that? So identify your products and services, really list them out, and then have a plan as to how are you going to achieve those short and long-term goals. And this one I really emphasize is strategic relationships. Business is all about building relationships. So look for collaborations with other businesses, community organizations, nonprofits. Show your community involvement. Think that you do not have to market your business all by yourself. Look for other ways to partner and collaborate. Look for referrals. Look for sharing points. Look for other businesses to have your website or your links on their sites, because then you can have more shares, more likes. And then if you haven't already, I would encourage you to put a SWOT analysis together. And if you're not familiar with this term, it is really identifying. So if you just wrote on paper, make a plus sign, you've got 4 sections, and you're going to put in, what are my strengths? What am I good at? And it could be the service or the trade portion of it. And then what are my weaknesses? You could probably say, well, I'm not very good, or maybe I don't understand or not familiar with financial statements or bookkeeping. So that's a weakness. Or maybe I'm not very good on the social media side, and that's a weakness too. So list everything. If it's yourself, if you have partners, their strengths and their weaknesses, because weaknesses we need to address, and we want to make sure that we have found someone who can help. You might need to delegate that to someone, or you might need to contract that out or find someone who can help you with that. Look for opportunities. So the O is for opportunities, and these are ways to find out who could I build a relationship with and who could I partner with. So look for outside your box. Who can help me with that? And then threats. These are both internal and external that could prevent your business from being in operation. So if you take landscaping, your threat could be the weather, or it could be your equipment breaks down. If it's an online business, what if your website goes down, or people can't make a purchase because that paying system isn't working? And so try to look for ways to be proactive versus reactive. So look for those red flags. All right, so part of your business planning checklist is to identify your products and services. How do customers find out about you? A lot of people say, I've got referrals, or I've got a website, which is great, but do you want all your eggs in one basket, or do you want to be on multiple platforms? Or is it just referrals are great, I'm good, this is enough business for me, and that's totally fine, but just manage where your customers find out about you. And once you've attained that, really keep a good customer-oriented focus and stay in touch with them if you want to keep those customers. And think, are you a one-time sale or a multiple sale? So landscaping, do you only see your customers twice a year in the spring and fall? And so do you communicate with them throughout the year? So think of different ways how to stay connected with your customers. And then what is your company vision? And again, these are going to fall on your website. So this is where you tell your story. Your company vision. How are you going to achieve this vision? And then what are your core values? So what does the company believe in? What do you stand for? So that so when someone says your business name or your name, what would you like them to say about you? Great customer service, they go above and beyond, they answered all my questions. So these are things you could have your customers talk about you. Look for testimonials, look for reviews, ask them to say some things about you, and then these are things you can put on your website, marketing material. Identify who your key customers are, and then let them be able to show what the benefits are. So list out what are the benefits that you provide to your customers, and then also what are your key suppliers and partners, distributors, and then how do they play a role. So we all know that there's supply chain issues, so do you have a backup? Do you have A, B, C, and D? What if your first supplier doesn't come through? Do you have a second supplier? Because you want to make sure that you meet your customer needs and be able to address them. And then list your 3 competitors for your business and explain what value that they provide that you don't. Because if you don't provide what I need, I am going to look for it elsewhere. And if you can say, yes, my competitors do offer this, but this is how I'm different. This is an example of a couple different canvases that you can use for your business model. So this one on the bottom is called the Business Model Canvas. And you can search it, and you can get this exact same format for you to plug in and list who your key partners are, what kind of projects you're going to work on, what kind of resources you need. It's going to talk about your revenue, your cost structure, your customer segment. This way it breaks it down into pieces, and it makes it easier to visualize what your business is doing. All right, marketing plan. This is where you're going to put down the value propositions, which is how are you different? What makes you stand out? You're listing your products and services. You're identifying your customers because you have created a customer profile and how you're going to reach them. And you've also looked at your competitors and how you're different from them. Your operating plan. These are your people. This is your business structure, hiring, training. Do you have an employee handbook put together? If you don't, I will share with you a resource that will help you put one together. And you can also have the Department of Labor look it over to make sure you have all the compliance correct. This is also going to list your facilities. If you have a brick and mortar, any compliance or any regulatory that is listed there. If you have manufacturing, supply chain plan, research and development systems. So this is your operational plan of your parts and pieces. So pull this all together, create that elevator pitch, identify what your products and services are, and how are you different. And this is in the eyes of the customers, not how you determine that you're different. So you can determine how you're different, but ask your customers too. Have the conversations, get the feedback, and keep in mind this phrase of you are moving people to buy your product or service. So how are you moving people? How are you engaging with them? And then your operating plan. So those are your 4. It's your marketing plan, your operational plan, a financial plan. And like I said, I did also mention cybersecurity plan. Work on them independently so that you don't feel overwhelmed putting this all together, because it does roll up into your business plan. Now, as part of your financial plan, what are the realistic time frames of your model? And so detail those. Now, the assumptions are you picked out a price, what you're charging. Is it just you picked it out in the air? Is it based on competition? Is it industry standard? Does it cover your expenses? And so use these calculated cost formulas to be able to sit down with your business consultant and make sure that you are on the right path. Now, your action plan is focused on the next 90 days. So I mentioned earlier to do things in quarter staples, because then it's easier to focus. So work on those on that 90-day plan and define who is my customer, what exactly am I selling, and when and how often could I engage with them. And then prioritize these actions of driving your market, make you visible and relevant to your customers, and then how are you retaining existing customers. A lot of times people are focusing on, now if you're brand new, of course you are looking for new customers, but if you have existing customers, don't forget about them. Those are the ones that you want to keep. Those are going to be giving you referrals. Those are going to stick with you. And so a lot of times people are focusing on getting new customers even though you have existing. So just don't forget how to stay engaged with existing customers. All right, so keep in mind, function of your business plan is, what is your business strategy? You have what product or service, you've clearly defined it, you're selling it to what target market, you created that customer profile, and what is their experience? So how are you different? What do they say about you? Management team and roles, so that goes back to, what do you do every day? Is it every second Thursday you are ordering your supplies? Maybe it's every first Monday of each month you're sitting down and putting together your social media calendar. Could be Sundays. You're going to put together your invoices, or you could be looking at, well, how did last week go? What worked, what didn't? What do I need to do differently for this week? And then look ahead to the next week. So always look at 3 weeks. The last week, the current week, and the following week, and have things prepared. You've got your marketing plan, you've got your financial plan, and you're looking at what is your customer value. So here in the middle, what is your vision? So who are you? Tell your story. You've identified people, so this is your organizational structure. Who is doing what? And really have that identified. And then data. How are you measuring what's working and what's not? You can't just, oh gosh, I don't have enough income coming in this month. I better hurry up and start marketing. That's not when you start putting your marketing in place. Have a plan. Look for things that are free. Do you have a budget for certain things? And then what is that budget? And then issues. Things do come about, so problem solving, identify it, discuss it with your team, and come up with a solution, and then document that process. Put things into a system where people can find them. That way everyone's all on the same page. And if there's any questions, those can be addressed. But have look for ways to be efficient and effective and simplified. This diagram is very helpful for really looking at product. What are the benefits of your product? Are there certain features? And what are the experience that the customer will have? And then look at your customer. What do they need or want? What is the problem that you're trying to solve for them? Why are they coming to you? And then the fears are, well, what if you don't have what I need? Or if you don't come through? Or it isn't a good fit after the job's been completed. So how do you eliminate the fear for them? And then what are the substitutes? What are other options out there that, even if you say, well, I don't specialize in this, but I work with another company and here's a good referral. So maybe you could also have referrals with competition, which really isn't a direct competitor. Just a few questions and dialogue that you could have with your customers to create a relationship. And we all know that business is all about relationships, so engage with your customers. Find out what the problems that they're having. Is there a cost issue? Is there a time frame? And then listen to what they're asking. So you're the expert. I'm coming with a problem. I'm looking for a solution. And maybe we're not on the same page. And maybe I need some help really focusing. And so that's where you come into play to make sure that you're talking the same language. So build your brand. Let them know that you are, what problem you're trying to solve, and how you're reducing the fear. So let them know that there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. or if you have any issues, call me. I'll come back out so that we can feel comfortable, because we're going to do business, and you can even attest to this. People do business with those that they trust. So how are you instilling trust? Give them a new and valuable perspective. I just wanted someone to come out and mow the yard, trim the bushes, and you say, oh, well, if you would like any designs, or if you ever want to change your landscape, I have a portfolio of some design features. It's like, oh, great, I hadn't thought about that, but I would love to see it. See, they've exceeded my expectations, and we're helping them enjoy the benefits by saying, well, now you can enjoy your family and have parties and picnics in your backyard because your yard looks great. And then also help them feel understood and valued. If you're talking down to them using high-level words or technical words, we're just going to say, so do you still do this? Or does this have anything to do with a certain fertilizer? I just want my plants to grow. So make sure that you're really talking on the same level as your customers. So the heart of marketing is having the right target market. So know your customer, you're saying the right message, you're understanding your brand, you're selling the experience, not the business, and you know what the benefit that it brings. So address that within your marketing, and then be consistent across all platforms, marketing material, website. If you're going out to networking events, or if people within your organization are out as well, have everyone be talking the same. And you're using the right channels of how to reach your customers. Be unique, be different, and then be understood. So you're talking language from the customer's perspective. Are you having problems with? Would you like to spend more time with your family? I can help relieve that. And if you're having specials and you're putting stuff on your website, have it be updated. Don't be showing things back in May for Mother's Day, or even back in June for Father's Day, or even 4th of July if you had specials then. So look for the next opportunity. So again, marketing is moving people to buy your product or service. So how are you doing it? Because as a consumer, that's what we're saying, well, what's in it for me? If I use your business, how do I know that you're going to fulfill it for me? Focus on what's in it for me, so focus on the benefits. Focus on what is the problem that you're solving for them. People buy based on emotion, so create that emotional connection with them. And as I mentioned earlier, look for new customers. Focus on those short-term promotions or the long-term strategic alliances with new relationships. So look for opportunities, and that O is for opportunities on your SWOT analysis of who to partner with. Again, it could be competitors, other businesses, community organizations, nonprofits. Great partnerships to look at. Keep in mind, cheaper is not always better. People will question, so why are they so much less than someone else? And they start to question the value. And if you're higher, explain why you're higher. What's the return? People are willing to pay more, but they have to see that there's value to it. And most importantly, are you covering your cost? Can't just pick a cost number out of the air and charge it, but is it really covering your costs? You really need to know your financials. And should you expand, that's what your 3- and 5-year plan are going to show. And then most importantly, have you left a good impression? That's what we want your customers to be telling you. So ask them for reviews, get feedback, follow up within 24 to 48 hours of the sale, and ask them, thank you for your service, thank you for your purchase. If you have any questions or need assistance, please follow up. Keep the engagement with them. I encourage market research, so look for ways to research your target market, your customers. Make sure that you're looking at market trends, competition, and I will show you a resource that can help you do this as well. Lots of different websites for statistics. If you're in the Treasure Valley, we've got the Boise Public Library. They have a great business help team that has some market research, and then through the Meridian Library, there's a tech library called Unbound. They have 3D printers if you're looking for prototypes to work on. If they've got printers, they've got some tech software, so definitely check them out. They're a great resource to use. A lot of different ways for your marketing through distribution of direct mail, website, kiosks, maybe how you package, maybe the quality of how you package. Could be the branding, sales, public relations, networking. There's a lot of ways to reach out to your customers. And again, be consistent and remember the brand, because people remember not just the name or the color, but it could be a phrase. It could be something catchy. So come up with a tagline. This is a great website, IdahoBizHelp.Idaho.gov. You've got two focuses. One is a business wizard, very similar to the IBR, but if you're looking for your state and local regulations, kind of your online checklist to starting your business, and then a resource wizard. If you're looking for agricultural loans, if you're looking for financing, angel investors, there's some big business incubators, chambers of commerce. The economic development organizations are in rural communities. If you're interested in doing business with the federal government, importing, exporting, and SBA loans. So lots of great resources to connect with. Now just a little bit on financing. Now there are no grants out there to help you start your business or expand. So do be careful. If you see these, there's unfortunately a lot of identity theft and fraud, and you don't want to be caught in something. And if someone says, oh, hey, you should go check out, I'm sure this grant's for women, minorities, veterans, small businesses, bring it to our attention and we'll let you know what that is. If you're going to go to a bank for financing, most businesses are financed through friends and family, personal savings, credit cards. You can certainly go to a bank. A lot of times they're going to want you to be in business for at least 2 years if you're a startup. They're going to want to see projections. They're going to want to see repayment ability. And then, of course, financing is going to take longer than you'd like. So that's where that financial plan will come into play. So if you are going to be approaching a lender, think like a lender. What are they going to be asking you for? So they focus on what they call the 5 C's of credit. They're going to look at character. So what, reputation, do you have management experience? They're going to look at your cash flow. So if it's an existing business, they're going to ask for your 3 years worth of tax returns and business financial statements. If it's a startup, they're going to look at projections. They're also going to ask for collateral. These are assets to secure the loan. Could be inventory, equipment, could be the equity that you have in your personal residence. They're going to ask you to put capital or contribution into the loan. Could be referred to as skin in the game. And that could be anywhere from 10 to 30% that you inject into the business, just like you would a house or a car when you first purchase those. They also look at the condition. So how is the industry doing? And then what will you be using the loan for? So know exactly what you're going to be using, and that's where this projection will also be helpful. You can't just say, well, I need $50,000 and working capital. So really be specific. And is that enough? Is it going to get you to cover maybe the next 2 years? Because the bank doesn't think too highly that they'll see you that you may come back in 6 months and it's like, oh, I should have probably asked for 75 instead of 50. So they want to make sure, again, going back to, can you manage the business well? And then check your credit report. Yes, credit is a factor. So you want to make sure that there isn't any red flag that could show up. You do get a free credit report every year, and you want to make sure that nothing is on there that you aren't aware of. So as far as the financials go, if this is one of your weaknesses where you're not sure what the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement are, and you just give it to your accountant and say, here, you take care of that, you still want to make sure that you have some understanding of what those are. And then I would encourage you to look at your financials at least weekly. Maybe you do your own reports. You need to know where you are at any given time. You need to know if you're able to meet your end of month expenses. Do you have enough revenue coming in to cover that? So that's where that internal planning comes into play. All right, build your team. These are your cheerleaders. These are people that are in your corner helping you out. So yes, we definitely want to keep our accountant close to us. You're paying this person or company for their service. So they should be educating you, talking you through any red flags, helping you with your business. And if they aren't, you might need to look for a different service provider. You may or may not need an attorney. There is a free resource through the University of Idaho Entrepreneurial Law Clinic, and they can assist with everything from intellectual property, structure changes, online businesses, if you have any regulatory questions there. If you need help putting a contract together, they can help with that as well. And I will put a link into the chat so that you can reach out to them. And also know that there's a difference between a bank and a banker. You go to your bank when you first establish your business in new accounts, and now you want to establish a line of credit, or you need an equipment loan. Get to know the folks in the commercial lending department. What do they need? What kind of documents? How long is it going to take? What are my requirements? You want to borrow before you need to borrow. Otherwise, it's an urgent response, and you definitely want to make sure that you are planning instead of recovering. What kind of insurance do you have? Have you compared? Do you need to look at a different provider? Do you have a business consultant on your team? And I'll show you a resource where you can have free business consulting. And check out your industry. A lot of times they have associations that you can belong to. Here in Idaho, if you're a manufacturer, there's the Manufacturers Alliance. If you are doing anything that is homemade, we have Buy Idaho. There's Fair Idaho, which deals with food and beverage regulations. There's a lot of resources. We have a veterans organization. So definitely check out and see if there's an organization that is specific to your industry. Chambers are also great. Just a few points here on measuring your productivity markets. How do you compare to competition? Where can you improve? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Once a week, look at your business at that 30,000-foot level and work on those items that are most important and have a timeline. You might need to pivot your business, and that's without changing your vision. So you might need to repurpose assets. Maybe how you address your target market, social media channels, how you accept payment or technology. So business planning isn't complicated, but I would encourage you to at least have these 4 components within your business model. Have that vision statement, create your SWOT analysis, have that financial plan, and your marketing plan. These are all going to roll up to your business plan. And if you do feel like you're feeling overwhelmed, just take some time and work in those smaller, break your projects down into small, manageable steps. And most importantly, if you want to stay relevant to grow your business, you do have to prepare to plan and be inventive and agile. So be prepared to shift, adjust to where the market's going, the way the economy is going, maybe the way your customers are changing. So be prepared. So I just want to leave you with SMART goals. So if you aren't familiar with SMART goals, they are being specific. So put your numbers into your goals and specify exactly what you want to achieve. Have them be measurable. You need to know if you have or haven't reached your goals. They need to be attainable. So are they too difficult to achieve? Then they aren't goals, but they're dreams. You want to be successful. So your goals goals should be realistic and attainable. Are they relevant to your business and proportionate to your scale of business? Does it make sense? And they must be time-based. So should they be attained promptly, whether that's a month, a quarter, or a year, but give it a time frame. Instead of saying, well, I'll have that done here by the end of summer. Well, what's the end of summer? So give it an actual date, August 31st. That's when I'm going to have it completed by. And this is a page that I would like for you to write down. These are your business consultants. And again, free business consulting. Visit them as often and as many times. If you haven't gone to SBA's website, I would encourage you to check out our national site. You got great information on trainings, tutorials, steps on financing, government contracting, exporting, lots of great resources. Score.org, they have some great on-demand trainings, webinars, templates. I always check out those. The Small Business Development Center, we have 6 throughout the state and 2 in Eastern Oregon, and we have a Women's Business Center. They have offices throughout the state as well. So please reach out to them. They can help you with any stage of your business, and a lot of folks use them in the beginning, and now you're in year 6, 8, or 10, and you're at a different phase, so certainly reach out to them. So thank you for listening, and I hope you've attained a few nuggets that can be helpful for your business. Thank you, Steve. I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Irene. That was some great information. Again, if you need this material, it's available when you, on that email that I sent you, when you click on the link, you scroll to the bottom, you should be able to download it there. If you run into any issues with that, go ahead and email me at tax.Idaho.gov, and I can send it to you in PDF format. Okay? So we have Don Baltadanos from the Taxpayer Advocate Service is going to be with us next. Let's go ahead and take about 6 minutes. So it'll be a long break today. So yeah, take 6 minutes. We'll be back at 10 till, and then we'll go with Don. Okay? Thanks. Hey, so we're back. It was a quick 6 minutes. Next up, we're going to have Don Baltadanos. She's from the Taxpayer Advocate Service, and she's going to explain some other information to you. Let me get her here. Where are you? Here you are.
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, and hopefully you can hear me well.
You're a little quiet, but nowhere near as bad as before.
Okay, so I removed the headphones and sought out a better speaker.
Excellent.
So thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I am Don Baltadanos. I am the local taxpayer advocate here in Idaho. I work for the Taxpayer Advocate Service, TAS for short. We are a small part of the IRS, but we're independent from the IRS in terms of confidentiality and disclosure. I want to take a few minutes to make you aware of who we are, what we do, resources and rights that you have when dealing with the IRS. If there ever comes a time when you have tried to resolve a problem or issue with the IRS but haven't been successful or it's taken too long, know that we are here to help you. We consider ourselves your voice at the IRS. Again, my presentation today is pretty much kind of a resource, get to know us type of thing. Hopefully you will never need our services, but if you do, know we are there. Just a little bit about us, our background. Erin Collins, she is our new NTA, or National Taxpayer Advocate. She came to us right at the beginning of the pandemic. Prior to coming over to us, she was a tax managing director in charge of KPMG's tax controversy services, where she worked for 35 years. She's worked with all levels of the IRS, exam, appeals, chief counsel functions, represented foreign and domestic corporations in a wide variety of technical and procedural issues. So she's well qualified to represent us. So who we are, although TAS is a part of the IRS, we are independent. There was a Restructuring and Reform Act of 1998 It set the position of the National Taxpayer Advocate. We used to call it problem resolution, and strengthened our organization, making us independent. We provide free service to all eligible taxpayers. Free services includes individual taxpayers, businesses, authorized representatives, exempt organizations, no income limitations for our assistance. I'll discuss what it means to be eligible for our services in just a slides. By law, IRC 7803 identifies the required functions of the Taxpayer Advocate Service. We assist taxpayers in resolving problems with the IRS. We identify areas in which taxpayers are having recurring problems in dealing with the IRS. To the extent possible, we propose changes in the administrative practices IRS to mitigate and prevent those problems, and identify potential legislative changes that may be appropriate to prevent such problems in the future. We do all of this and take our responsibilities very seriously. I'll discuss how we do these things through what we call case advocacy, systemic advocacy, and through working directly with the IRS for administrative changes, and with Congress for legislative recommendations through our annual. TAS offices, by law, we are required to have at least one local taxpayer advocate in each state. I'm the one in Idaho. However, we do have more than one LTA office in the larger states, California, Texas, New York, Florida, because populations shift over time and different taxpayer issues emerge. So they allocate staff and offices accordingly. So back to what we do. TAS protects taxpayers' rights by striving to ensure all taxpayers are treated fairly, that they know and understand their rights under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which I'll another slide go over. We help taxpayers, not just individuals, again, where a system or procedure has either failed to operate as intended or efforts have failed to resolve the problem or dispute with the IRS. If you qualify for our help, your advocate will be with you at every turn and do everything possible to assist you. This process is our case advocacy process. I will cover some of the self-help tools in a few slides and go over the taxpayer rights and explain when to come to us for case assistance in just a moment. And I'll go over systemic advocacy, a little bit about systemic advocacy too. Sorry about this. So to see specific examples of how we've helped others, you can visit our website. It's taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, and just search the news stories or success stories. But every year we help thousands of people with tax problems. I have a couple of examples, but they're only some of the few of how we've helped resolve taxpayer situations or tax issues for taxpayers. We're advocating for an alternative approach to an expense verification and a correspondence audit, helping relieve a taxpayer's hardship, protecting taxpayer rights in a tax lien withdrawal case, reducing a tax debt, penalty abatements, advocating for small business to receive a return of levy proceeds, helping a taxpayer victimized by a return preparer. I think we have one of those cases right now. Helping a taxpayer validate eligibility for the earned income tax credit, and many more. I'll go over the TAS options for self-help. Our website does have a wealth of self-help information on many tax-related topics. We have step-by-step instructions on how to work through the problems with the IRS. Our website's designed to help taxpayers, tax professionals. Parts of it are available in Spanish as well as English now. The screenshots shown on the slide shows the main Get Help page. As you can see, it shows a search box section, then a what if section, by category, by alphabet options to look up your exact issue. So you've got a lot of options. Not every topic is shown on the screen, but there are many topics that you can choose from. Not shown is a section for our digital tools. These are called estimators. These can help you with determining eligibility for certain healthcare-related tax credits and estimate the total credit you may claim. At the bottom of the page are two buttons that will take you to a listing of your rights as a taxpayer and a Contact Us page. Once you choose the topic closest to the issue that you may be having, you'll see information laid out in the following format: a description and explanation of the issue, what should I do section, explaining the steps you can take to resolve it, how will this affect me section that explains how the issue may affect you or your account and what might happen if you don't take any action. What are my resources section that'll give you a listing of all the resources available that relate to the issue, ones that have more information about the topic, that have links to forms or other products that may be helpful to take those actions. A what are my rights section that describes your rights as a taxpayer specifically related to the issue, and talk about rights in slides. And then lastly, wait, hey, I still need help section that lists other options of how and where to get it. We do have information on choosing a tax preparer if you decide you want to enlist the help tax professional, as well as tips of what to do if you've hired one but received improper care, or the preparer you chose has performed maybe illegal actions, maybe made changes that you weren't aware of, or demonstrated general misconduct. We have information on free or low-cost services for low-income, elderly taxpayers too, should someone need it much more. But again, if you have a tax or a federal tax-related problem, definitely recommend start with the Get Help section. And you can go there if you want to just learn more about different tax issues too. Also have a taxpayer road self-help tool that's been in development the last 3 years, but it allows you to input a notice number that you may have received and not only see where in the federal tax process you are, but get plain language explanations of why the notice was sent to you, how to go about responding to it, resolving the issue. We haven't listed every single IRS letter or notice, but we're working on it. We've only included the most common ones at this point. Again, it's a continual work in progress. If you're simply feeling lost in that tax maze that is the IRS, or you get a specific notice and not sure what it means or what to do, to use this interactive tool to figure out where you are and what to do, to help you find your way to a resolution. You can enter your IRS notice number in the search field, use the section view quick links to navigate a processing station, or manually just click on different markers or stops throughout the map. So when to come to us for help, for tax account help. In general, contact TAS when experiencing some financial difficulty, emergency, or hardship, and the IRS needs to move much faster than it usually does or even can under normal procedures. In those cases, time is of the essence. If the IRS doesn't act quickly, for example, to remove a levy or release a lien, experience even more financial harm or injury. This includes all types of taxpayers, again, businesses, not just individuals. Many different IRS units and steps are involved, and the case needs a coordinator or a kind of traffic cop. Make sure everyone does their part. TAS kind of plays that role. Someone's tried to resolve a problem through normal IRS channels, but those channels have broken down. We've seen that quite a bit over the last couple of years. There's a unique set of facts or issues, including legal issues, and the IRS is applying a one-size-fits-all approach. They aren't listening. They don't recognize that it needs new guidance for those circumstances. The system or procedures either failed to operate as intended or failed to resolve a problem or dispute with the IRS. If you want more specific information on when TAS accepts cases, you can go to our website. But first, I'll let you tell you about another new tool that will help you to determine if you're eligible. To this next slide. This is brand new. We now have this online tool that will help see if you qualify for our assistance on a tax account issue, simply by answering a few questions. To find it, just go to our Contact Us page, scroll down until you see the tool in the Tools section shown on this screen, or use a direct link shown on this slide. Again, hopefully you save the slides for a future resource that hopefully you never have to use. But if you do qualify for our assistance, there are a number of ways you can request our help. You can use the Can TAS Help Me with My Tax Issue tool. If the answer is yes, you can fax or phone our LTA office. I have our contact information on the last slide in this presentation. You can call the NTA intake line, that 877-777-4778. You can download the Form 911 request for assistance, fill that out and either fax it in. We have a new document upload tool that we are learning about and instituting soon. So that's going to be another option that in future presentations I'll be able to explain more about. So working with TAS, what should you expect? Well, in general, you'll be contacted within 3 to 7 days based on the urgency or hardship that's been communicated to us when we receive the inquiry. You'll be given a name, contact information for a case advocate that's assigned to work with you to resolve this inquiry. The person will be your contact until the matter is resolved. When the case advocate contacts you, they'll attempt to clarify the issue, give you an estimated completion date based on the time that it normally takes the IRS to resolve similar issues. There have been delays just because the pandemic has still caused a lot of the paper processing the IRS has to be delayed much longer than we anticipated. But our estimated completion dates are only an estimate. IRS delays, the pandemic has played a factor, but we'll try to give you the best estimate that we can. If we request more information from you, but we don't receive a reply and don't receive that information, we'll make a second request in writing, response date. We may have to close the inquiry if we don't, if there's no response to that second request. And if that happens, you have to contact the IRS directly to resolve the problem, or contact TAS again and say, I've got the information, we'll try to do what we can. What else do? We also address large-scale systemic issues that affect many taxpayers. We raise these concerns to senior leaders at the IRS and usually collaborate with them on problem resolution. This is the systemic advocacy. The Taxpayer Advocate Service, or you can help us tackle these big picture problems in the IRS or tax law by reporting them to our SAMS, a Systemic Advocacy Management System. IRS.gov, and the best way to do it is just SAMS in the search field. But to report a tax problem that affects maybe more than one person. Right now, unfortunately, the IRS had a system glitch, and they were sending out automated notices where somebody filed a return, made a payment with the return. The system didn't recognize the payment, or was sending out these notices requesting the payment and saying you don't pay it. And so we recognized that quickly with people calling in and using the SAM system, and they're working on a resolution for that problem. What this isn't is we don't want you to report your own tax return or account issue. We don't want anyone to enter sensitive tax information, the Social Security number, into SAMS. It's like I said, it's a big picture type system. So your rights. I did mention that you have certain rights. Taxpayer Bill of Rights outlines the 10 fundamental rights that taxpayers have when working with the Internal Revenue Service. They adopted the Taxpayer Bill of Rights as proposed by our former NTA, Nina Olson. Congress then codified those rights into law. They apply to all taxpayers in dealing with the IRS. They grouped the existing rights in the tax code into 10 fundamental rights, makes them clear, understandable, and accessible. Briefly, those 10 rights are the right to be informed, the right to quality service, the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax, the right to challenge the IRS's position and be heard, the right to appeal an IRS decision in an independent forum, the right to finality, the right to privacy, the right to confidentiality, the right to retain representation, and the right to a fair and just tax system. Each right is further defined. Just one, for example, the right to be informed says the taxpayers have the right to know what they need to do to comply with tax issues. They're entitled to clear explanations of the laws, IRS procedures, and all tax forms, instructions, publications, notices, and correspondence. They have the right to be informed of the IRS's decisions about their tax accounts and to receive clear explanations of the outcome Bottom line, we want you to know that you have rights when dealing with the IRS. TAS is consistently working on your behalf to ensure that those rights are respected. There are full explanations on our website and the IRS's website. So a little bit about reports. Our NTA is statutorily required to submit 2 reports to Congress each year. Our annual report, that's due the end of December, and an objectives report that's due in June. She delivers the reports to the Senate Committee on Finance, House Committee on Ways and Means with no prior review or comment from the IRS, the Commissioner, the Oversight Board, Secretary, the Treasury, or others. The annual report to Congress includes the analysis of the 10 most serious problems encountered by taxpayers, along with legislative and administrative recommendations for solving those problems. Unfortunately for 2021, the problems, processing and refund delays that we're seeing, IRS recruitment and hiring training, difficult to bring people on board, the telephone and person service, the lack thereof, transparency and clarity, filing season delays, online accounts or the lack of digital communications, e-file barriers, correspondence audits, and collection issues. It has also the 10 most frequently litigated tax issues, and it also includes a purple book. It's a summary of 68 legislative recommendations designed to strengthen taxpayer rights and improve tax administration. I believe that the IRS is trying to adopt all 68 or 66 of the 68 now, so that's really good. They know that they need to improve. The objectives reports to Congress describes the key goals and activities planned by the NTA's office for the upcoming fiscal year, presents an assessment of the 2021 filing season, and addresses responses to our recommendations. Other TAS programs, we sponsor the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinics. They are also independent from the IRS and the taxpayer, or TAS. They represent individuals whose income is below a certain level and who need to resolve problems with the IRS. They can represent taxpayers in audits, appeals, tax collection disputes before the IRS and in tax court. LITCs can provide information about taxpayer rights and responsibilities, different languages for individuals who speak English as a second language. Their services are offered for free or a small fee. More information, have the link on the slide. Right now, Idaho only has one. It's La Posada in Twin Falls. We're hoping that within the next couple of years that we get to open another LITC somewhere in Idaho. Another program is the TAP program. It is a taxpayer advocacy panel. This is a federal advisory committee, independent panel of citizen volunteers who listen to taxpayers, identify issues, make suggestions for improving the IRS service and customer satisfaction. This way, taxpayers have another opportunity to provide direct feedback to the IRS through TAP. We usually have one volunteer in each state, and someone in the U.S. territory and overseas. If you know of someone or yourself is a tax geek and strive and have a lot of ideas to improve the IRS, definitely jump online to the improveirs.org or contact a TAP member at that 888-912-1227 number. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the accessible IRS tax products. These are now newer options for obtaining accessible tax products for people that may have visual impairment. You have electronic versions of many tax forms, instructions, and publications in those accessible formats, including e-braille, text, large print, and Section 508 compliant PDF or HTML files. They're available on accessible forms and publication page on the IRS.gov. There are printed versions of many tax forms, instructions, and publications in, like I said, the braille, large print, by calling the tax form telephone number 800-829-3676. So taxpayers can request tax notices in the braille or large print. If a taxpayer receives a notice or letter, but would prefer to have it in another format, they can have the following choices. They can use the Form 9000, the Alternative Media Preference Form, attach it, the filled out form to their tax return and mail it separately to the IRS. Or you can call the toll-free tax assistance number at the 800-829-1040. Again, call the Accessibility Helpline at 833-690-059. Questions on IRS accessibility services. We do know that tax information can be hard to understand in any language. It can be even harder if that information isn't offered in the language that someone knows best. IRS is now translating tax resources into more languages. Currently, the IRS.gov website offers basic tax information in English plus 20 other languages. But you can look for a listing near the top of each IRS.gov webpage and the online tools, and click on the link for the language you need. You'll also find many IRS tax form schedules publications in multiple languages. Right now, TAS's website our resources are only limited to English and Spanish, but again, we're constantly improving the website. And don't forget the LITCs. They're also available to represent low-income individuals who speak English as a second language. So requesting a language preference, the IRS has a 1040 Schedule LEP, request for change in language preference, which allows taxpayers to ask for that information from the IRS in their preferred language. There are 20 languages you can currently choose from besides English. Just complete the form, as I said, file it with your individual tax return. It's available in English, Spanish, IRS forms, and publications at the IRS.gov forms and instructions. If you e-file Schedule LEP with your tax return, you don't need to file a paper version of this. They do have interpreter services. If you can't find the answers to your tax questions in your language on IRS.gov, they can offer you help in 50 languages with the support of professional interpreters. For assistance in English and Spanish, you call the 800-829-1040. For all other languages, the 853-995. They can also provide interpreter, over-the-phone interpreter, or OPI services for most of the IRS taxpayer-facing functions, which is really valuable sometimes, including the taxpayer assistance centers, the walk-in areas, IRS exams in person and for over-the-phone questions related to a correspondence exam. When dealing with the IRS representatives discussing tax collections for appeals meetings, conference calls. So if you need an interpreter to help you understand, ask the IRS to use the over-the-phone interpreter or OPI services. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and is free of charge. If you want to know even more, we have some links that covered a lot of information. But if you remember nothing else from today's presentation, please remember this. The Taxpayer Advocate Service is your voice at the IRS. For more information, you could visit our website, the taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, also available in Spanish. Help us spread the word. Tell your friends, family, anyone else who might need help with an IRS federal tax-related issue to go to our website, see if they qualify for TAS assistance. I definitely attending today. This last slide is our intake line. If you need to leave your name, phone number, and some information about a tax issue that you or somebody else is experiencing, if you can, please leave your Social Security number or EIN. If you're uncomfortable with leaving that, just leave a contact number and we'll call you back, usually within 24 hours or same day. Fax or send that completed 9/11 in. As soon as we review it, we'll give you a call back and either create a case for you or give you some advice on what to do. Our email address, please include a phone number if you'd like us to contact you and provide specific information about your tax issue. We'll not send sensitive or personally identifiable via email, but we can send you some generic information and possibly links. I do have one other slide. It's in the Small Business Tax Workshop. I don't know, Steve, if you could change it to it real quick, but it's 24/7 IRS videos for small business topics. There's 8 lessons. Again, they're available 24/7. They include federal taxes and your new business, Schedule C and other small business taxes, filing and paying taxes electronically, business use of your home, federal taxes when hiring employees or independent contractors, managing payroll to withhold the correct amount of taxes, tax deposits and filing a return to report payroll taxes, hiring people who live in the IRS who aren't U.S. citizens. You can find all of these, again, 24/7 at irsvideos.gov or look under Small Business Self-Employed on the irs.gov website. And thank you very much for spending the time to listen to me. I will send it back to you, Steve. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Dawn. I feel like I'm yelling now. Any questions about any of that stuff that we just covered? There's a lot of great information. I would highly recommend watching these videos. Great information in there. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and leave this open. We'll go ahead and wrap this up for today. I am recording it, so it'll take a little while to process that, like I said, day or two. Once that is done, I'll send you a link to this. Can you go to the next slide if it's available? I did. Here, let me, maybe it's just because I did it. Hang on. This one? Does that work now? Okay. Yeah, Don still had the presenter icon, so. Okay, we'll call it a day. I'll leave this open in case somebody has some questions, and then I'll process this, and then once I have that video done, I will send out a link to it, okay? Thank you, everybody, for attending. You've been great. We will have another one for self-employed, I think, next week, and then there will be another webinar for strengthening your business next week as well. Okay? All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.